Before the First World War, Germany began to consider the North Sea as its domain, thereby posing a challenge to Britain's navy. In response to this potential threat, the British government decided to build an air station to provide some security for their naval bases at Rosyth, Cromarty and Scapa Flow. Montrose was chosen as the site of the air station, the first operational air station in Britain. In February 1913, No. 2 Squadron of the newly formed Royal Flying Corps was sent to Montrose. Initially, the squadron operated from a field at Upper Dysart, south of Montrose, until the commanding officer, Major Charles Burke, decided that the flat land at Broomfield, to the north of the town, would make an ideal airfield. They were the first squadron to have aircraft which are still a rare and wonderful new invention. It took 5 of their pilots over a week to fly their BE-2s and Farman biplanes to Montrose. The people of Montrose soon grew accustomed to flying machines before most of Britain had even seen one. By 1914, hangars had been constructed to house the flimsy aircraft. These hangars are still there today. No. 2 Squadron at Montrose were the pioneers of military aviation in Britain, but their exercises were soon to give way to the real thing. In August 1914, No. 2 Squadron left Montrose to lead the Royal Flying Corps to war. They never returned. Aircraft soon proved to be a vital weapon in modern warfare, and the RFC grew rapidly. Pilots and ground crew were urgently needed, and Montrose took on the vital role of pilot and ground crew training. New squadrons were formed at Montrose and became part of the Royal Air Force when it was established in April 1918. After the First World War, the noise of aircraft constantly taking off and landing ceased, and Montrose once more became a quiet and peaceful small town. But not for long. The threat from Hitler's Germany saw the RAF return to Montrose in 1936 to train pilots for another war. The Hawker Harts and Furies of what was now No. 8 Flying Training School were biplanes in appearance not much different from the aircraft of the First World War. Training pilots was a dangerous business. An American at Montrose in 1918 wrote in his diary, "There is a crash every day and a funeral every week." The Heritage Centre Photographic Archive contains many pictures of crashed aircraft, and on the hills of Angus the remains of aircraft can still be seen. Fast air-sea rescue launches operated from the harbour during the Second World War. Mountain rescue was pioneered at Montrose. Montrose, close to both the mountains and the sea, needed rescue services. Accidents involving aircraft are often fatal. There are 85 RFC and RAF graves in Montrose cemeteries, mostly of men who were killed in training. They are only a small fraction of the total casualties. The bodies of most of the dead aircrew were sent home for burial at the request of their families. The Heritage Centre is creating a Roll of Honour to include the names and background information of all the dead of Montrose Air Station. The air raid shelters around the perimeter of the airfield can still be seen today, reminders of the dangers of enemy bombing during the Second World War. There were casualties from enemy bombs at the airfield and among the civilian population in Montrose. Such an attack took place in October 1940 when Hankel bombers flew low over the sea and up the river South Esk, bombing the harbour and machine gunning the high street. The air station was their main target, and it suffered heavy losses of personnel, aircraft and buildings.
It has in fact been heard. The people using this building tell newcomers to take no notice of the opening and closing doors and the footsteps on the floor because it is in fact just the ghost. Equally to buildings within our vicinity here, the ghost is still heard today.
One of our members, who hadn't been long with us, came over the bridge and came into the hut, and he said, "It's a terrible night for flying." The air ministry warder looked at him. He said, "But there isn't anybody flying tonight." He said, "Oh," he said, "don't tell me." He said, "I've just passed a man on the top of the bridge." He said, "I spoke to him. I said, what a dirty night it was." But he didn't reply. The air ministry warder looked at him. He said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Oh yes." He said, "The man was dressed in a leather jacket, 3/4 length, helmet and goggles, flying gear." At this, the air ministry warder picked a calendar off the wall, on the back of which was a cutting from a newspaper which described the ghost of Montrose Aerodrome, and he handed it to this man. And the man started reading it, and I can recall seeing his hair rise as he read this article about the ghost, and he said, "That's exactly as I saw it."
I think this Belgian station's actually at Passchendaele. Writing from the Montrose Air Station Museum. Montrose is Mexico, Ontario, November. Tango Romeo Oscar Sierra Echo in the northeast coast of Scotland, midway between Aberdeen and Dundee. Back to you, Mike 3, November Foxtrot uniform, Golf Mike 3, Kilo Charlie.
Here is news. and this is Alvar Liddell reading it. Up to 10 o'clock, 175 German aircraft had been destroyed in today's raids over this country. Today was the most costly for the German Air Force for nearly a month. In daylight raids, between 350 and 400 enemy aircraft were launched in 2 attacks against London and southeast England. About half of them were shot down.